She waited at the corner table, her trembling hands resting on her lap, a faint smile frozen on her pale face. Around her, the soft music of the restaurant floated like a whisper, elegant, warm, and cruelly indifferent. Everyone else seemed to belong there. Laughing couples, clinking glasses, glowing faces under amber lights, everyone but her. Her wheelchair gleamed faintly in the soft light, a silent reminder of everything she wished she could forget. She had been convinced to come here by her so-called friends. "It'll be fun," they said, "and deserve a chance at love, too." But deep inside, a cold dread told her something wasn't right. She didn't know that tonight wasn't a chance at love. It was a cruel setup, a joke, a blind date arranged not out of kindness, but mockery. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and that life has a way of bringing light, even to the darkest places, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Her name was Lena Brooks, once a dancer, once a dreamer, now a woman trapped in stillness from the waist down. 2 years ago, a car accident had stolen not only her ability to walk, but her confidence, her joy, and most of her friends. Yet she tried to live, painting, reading, volunteering, anything that reminded her she still had purpose. But loneliness lingered like a shadow, whispering cruel truths at night. When her friends suggested setting her up on a date, she had hesitated. Who would want me now, she thought, but their enthusiasm wore her down. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to believe again, so here she was, wearing the soft blue dress that used to make her feel beautiful. She had spent hours preparing, doing her hair, putting on light makeup, and reminding herself that she was still worthy of love. The waiter smiled kindly at her, offering water. "Your guest should be here soon," he said. But an hour passed, then another. Her heart sank with every minute that ticked by. People glanced at her, some with pity, some with curiosity, some trying not to stare. Her phone buzzed with a message from one of her friends. "Sorry, couldn't make it. Hope you're having fun." That winking emoji, that cruel, careless symbol, shattered her. That's when she realized it wasn't a date. It was a joke. They had made her believe someone wanted to meet her, just to laugh about it later. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the lights of the restaurant. She felt so small, so invisible. The laughter from nearby tables suddenly felt louder, sharper, almost mocking. She tried to gather her things, ready to leave, when a tall man in a dark suit entered. His presence filled the room effortlessly. His gaze was confident yet kind, the kind of man who seemed to carry both power and pain. He scanned the tables until his eyes met hers, not her wheelchair but her eyes. And in that brief glance, something in her heart stirred. He walked toward her. "Lena Brooks?" he asked gently. She blinked, startled. "Yes? I'm sorry I'm late," he said, sitting down across from her with a genuine smile. "I'm Daniel, your date." She froze, unsure what to believe. Was this another part of the cruel joke? Or had fate decided to show mercy at last? Daniel Carter was a single father and CEO of a growing company. Widowed young, he had devoted his life to raising his little daughter, Emily. He hadn't been on a date in years, not because he couldn't, but because he hadn't found someone who made him feel again. His assistant had signed him up for a charity blind date event, insisting he needed to open his heart again. He had agreed reluctantly, until he saw the woman sitting alone by the window, looking both fragile and strong. He didn't know her story yet, but something about her sadness drew him in. As the evening went on, Lena barely spoke, too afraid of being mocked again. But Daniel's calm voice slowly melted her defenses. He asked about her art, her favorite books, her dreams, never once glancing at her wheelchair as something lesser. When she nervously mentioned her paralysis, he simply smiled and said, "You've learned to fight battles most people couldn't even imagine." That one sentence changed everything. For the first time in a long while she felt seen, not for what she had lost, but for what still burned inside her. They talked for hours. About music, about loss, about how pain sometimes leads to unexpected beauty. When the restaurant lights dimmed for closing, Daniel walked beside her wheelchair out to the car park. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of rain. Before she could thank him, he knelt, right there, adjusting the blanket on her lap that had slipped loose. The simple gesture broke her completely. No man had ever done that for her since the accident. He looked up at her and said softly, "Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, Lena, including you." That night, she cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming warmth of being treated like a human being again. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began to text her, small things at first, checking if she was okay, sending her funny pictures his daughter drew. Emily, his 6-year-old girl, loved talking to Lena on video calls, asking her about colors and stories. Slowly, Lena began to open up again. But not everyone was happy about it. When Daniel's business partner, Chris, found out who Lena was, he mocked him behind his back. "One-day paralyzed girl? Seriously, Dan? You're a CEO, not a charity worker." The words cut deep, but Daniel didn't care. He had seen more strength in Lena's quiet courage than in 1,000 boardrooms full of men. Meanwhile, Lena's so-called friends resurfaced, shocked that the man they'd intended to humiliate her with had actually fallen for her. They sent her cruel messages, calling her names, accusing her of manipulating pity. She deleted them all. For once, she wasn't going to let anyone steal her peace again. Weeks turned into months. Lena began visiting Daniel's office, sometimes just to bring him coffee or to sit in the garden nearby where he'd built a ramp for her wheelchair. He told her that her smile made stressful days easier, and he meant it. Emily adored her and would often ask, "Can Miss Lena come to dinner again?" Still, Lena fought her own fears, fear that he'd wake up one day and realize she wasn't enough, that her broken body would eventually drive him away. One evening, during a charity gala, those fears came crashing down. They arrived together, Daniel in a black tuxedo, Lena in a flowing emerald dress that shimmered under the chandeliers. For a moment, the room fell silent. People stared, some in admiration, others in disbelief. She could hear whispers. "She's the one he's dating? T could do so much better." Her heart pounded. She wanted to vanish, but Daniel, sensing her discomfort, tightened his hand over hers. Then, in front of everyone, he said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "Ines woman beside me. She taught me what real strength looks like." The crowd fell silent again, this time in awe. Later that night, Lena sat by the garden outside the venue, looking at the stars, tears silently streaming down her face. Daniel found her there, kneeling beside her once again. "Oh, you still don't see what I see, do you?" he whispered. "I see someone broken," she said. "And I see someone who rebuilt herself piece by piece," he replied. "Someone who didn't let the world's cruelty define her." Then, without hesitation, he took her hand, kissed it gently, and said the words that would stay with her forever. "I'm not here because I feel sorry for you, Lena. I'm here because I can't imagine my world without you." Months later, they stood in front of a small lake where Daniel used to take Emily. Lena had learned to paint the scenery from her wheelchair. Vibrant sunsets, reflections of hope, each stroke symbolizing her healing. Daniel and Emily would join her, laughing, feeding ducks, building memories that felt like home. One afternoon, Daniel brought a small box. He knelt again, just as he did that first night, and opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring, elegant and pure. "Lena Brooks," he said softly, "you taught me to see love in places I didn't know existed. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, her hands trembling. Emily ran up and hugged her legs, shouting, "We're going to be a family!" The sunlight sparkled off the lake, and for the first time since her accident, Lena didn't feel trapped. She felt free. A year later, the wedding was small but beautiful. Daniel stood proudly beside her as she rolled down the aisle, surrounded by people who now saw her not as the girl in a wheelchair, but as a woman who defied every expectation. When they exchanged vows, Daniel said something that made everyone weep. Some people walk into your life. Others roll in and change it forever. The crowd erupted in tears and laughter. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a victory over cruelty, despair, and hopelessness. After the ceremony, Lena's former friends tried to reach out, apologizing, pretending to care. But she didn't respond. She had learned that forgiveness didn't always mean reconnection. Some chapters had to stay closed for new ones to begin. Months later, she opened her own art studio, a place where people with disabilities could come to express themselves freely. Daniel helped fund it, but always reminded her, "This is your dream, not mine." The studio became a haven for many, filled with laughter, color, and healing. Sometimes when she looked at Daniel and Emily painting together, she realized that life hadn't been cruel to her. It had simply redirected her toward something greater. She often thought about that night, the night she was set up as a joke. If not for that cruel twist of fate, she might never have met the man who showed her that true love doesn't see limitations. It sees souls.